Maybe it's time to chat about another public health issue which has been in the press a huge amount, and that's gun control. We have heard about tragedy after tragedy, from school shootings to mass shootings to store shootings. It is beyond scary. And we keep hearing various suggestions to solve the problem. And it's really interesting to look at whether some of these solutions really make any sense, to drill down on the data a bit, and to figure out whether we can come up with a better plan for addressing the massive problem of gun control and gun violence in this country. I think it's really important to recognize that the overwhelming number of deaths related to guns are suicides. So while guns clearly make suicide much easier and much more fatal in the act of committing suicide, the real problem isn't the gun. The real problem is suicide. And I think the fact that the United States Preventative Services Task Force has included the fact that we should screen for depression is a very important lesson here and is an upstream solution to the problem of suicide, which is not directly related to the problem of guns, indirectly related. So again, let's recognize what the real problem is, which is overwhelmingly depression and suicide, not guns. So we hear lots of different solutions to gun control. And of course, the most prudent and reasonable that we hear repeatedly is increasing reasonable controls, background checks, and safeguards within it. And that certainly makes sense. Overwhelmingly, the vast majority of people who are gun owners are lawful gun owners and certainly don't have any concern about background checks or other reasonable waiting periods. So those reasonable pathways really, truly make a lot of sense. So let's talk about a bunch of other solutions that come up that maybe don't make as much sense. So we keep hearing lots of discussions about eliminating assault weapons. So while there are arguments pro and con, eliminating assault weapons, does that really solve the problem of gun deaths and gun violence? The facts are very clear. The overwhelming number of deaths associated with guns have nothing to do with automatic weapons. There are some very extreme and egregious examples, including the shooting in Las Vegas during the concert where over 60 people were killed with an automatic weapon. But those are truly less than a few percentage points of all the gun deaths. As a matter of fact, I would suggest they're under 1% of the deaths. So automatic weapon banning, you may agree or disagree with, but it's certainly not going to have any significant impact on the number of deaths or injuries associated with guns. The other thing we keep hearing about is the fact that we should screen, especially pediatricians should be screening about gun safety within the medical office, and that clearly if we ask parents about whether their guns are locked up, we're going to save a lot of lives. And it's also quoted very frequently that guns have replaced trauma as the #1 cause of death in children. So again, let's really drill down on that data and see if what's being suggested here, what the data reflects. So let's drill down on the data that suggests that guns are the #1 cause of childhood deaths. And the fact is, if you drill down on that data, it is overwhelmingly adolescent male minorities who are victims of gun violence, which again has nothing to do with the guns. It's related to gang violence. Now, again, certainly gang violence is horrible and miserable, and we shouldn't be putting guns into the hands of kids. But again, maybe the upstream solution and preventative solution is that we address gun violence, and that's a much more complex, we address gang violence and gangs, and that's a much more complicated and requires a much more sophisticated solution. So I think looking at this, let's really figure this out. Are physicians or pediatricians screening for guns in the during a pediatric visit going to really help the situation? I would suggest that physicians don't get a lot of training on gun violence and gun control in medical school. As actually, the reality is they get no training or background in it virtually at all. And while the AMA has said gun violence is in their lane, again, that is probably, yes, it's an important public health issue, but again, the primary care doctor, family doctor, or pediatrician do not have any particular singular expertise in this. Is it of concern to them? Yes. Are the surgeons in the ERs being faced with horrific injuries from guns? Yes. But again, that doesn't make them experts in the field of gun control or reducing gun violence. So I think, again, while it's a topic that physicians and healthcare organizations can opine on, I don't think they have the requisite subject matter expertise to really give detailed solutions on, but they can certainly work with the existing organizations who are trying to mitigate the harms associated with guns. So I think those are just a few topics to consider, to reflect on, and to determine whether some of the solutions for gun violence and guns maybe not are the most focused or directed toward the underlying problem, and that this is a complex issue where 99% of the people who own guns are law-abiding citizens, and we need to focus our energies where things go awry, as I discussed earlier, especially with more prudent and reasonable background checks and regulations on guns. Hey, thanks so much. Please comment and subscribe if you're interested. Enjoy chatting about these important public health topics. Have a great day.